farms were taken from them over generations.
Over the past century, African Americans have lost millions of acres of farms they owned across the South.
One of the places where the deficit has been the most extreme, and that's in farming and then the ownership of land.
All right, you guys, welcome back to Anton's class. On today's video, I wanted to talk about something very important. Did you know that black families all over the country, but specifically in the South, have lost millions of acres of farmland? Yes, that's right, millions of acres of farmland. Let's talk about it. Land ownership is incredibly important. So I'm going to have some video clips, of course. I'm going to have some important articles that really delve into this topic. This is something I've been studying recently, land ownership and the importance of land ownership in this country.
Even after the Civil War ended, the government never delivered on its promise of reparations. It said it would give freed people a plot no larger than 40 acres and a mule. It didn't. Despite the fact that the promise never happened, we did manage to save enough money to purchase 16 million acres of land by 1910. Black farming hit its peak in 1920.
And unfortunately, black folk, while just right after emancipation, we were doing a very good job of purchasing and owning and working the land, we did end up losing a lot of our land through a lot of crazy practices. Racism, of course, playing a large role. So anyways, you guys, I'm still reading The Devil You Know by Charles M. Blow. What are you guys reading and what are you researching? We would love to know. And if you have any interesting stories about land ownership and how you're developing your land or how your family may have lost land, we would love to know in the comments section below. I do have a quick story that I'll share later. And also there's a silver lining at the end of this video. So please watch to the end, okay? Because I do, after we talk about this issue, I want us to actually look at some of the progress that our people are making as far as land ownership is concerned. So this article says 1 million black families in the South have lost their farms.
Over the past century, African Americans have lost millions of acres of farms they owned across the South. It's a trend propelled not just by economic forces, but by white racism and local white political and economic power. It's not just a legacy of the Jim Crow South either.
Black landowners in the South have lost 12 million acres of farmland over the past century, mostly from the 1950s onward. Can you imagine 12 million acres of farmland that our people, our ancestors, our family members were farming, and now it's all gone?
You call this, or the headline is The Great Land Robbery. What happened?
Pretty much after the middle of the 20th century, federally funded farm programs, they were put out there to give small and middle-sized farmers loans, to support farms, to keep them going through bad economic times. They systematically disenfranchised and also discriminated against black farmers. They didn't get the loan amounts, they were denied loans that they were entitled to.
And as we've uncovered, unfortunately, being black meant that you didn't have the same rights or the same access to loans or goods or services that white people had, right? And that's been a common theme throughout our time in this country, right? So that's actually, very unfortunately, nothing new. And so with my family, actually, I have a quick story. So on my mother's side, or actually on my mom's grandfather's side, they had land in Texas, and I heard it was like halfway between Houston and Austin, somewhere in that region, like central Texas, I suppose. And apparently they had lots of acres of land, and unfortunately, however, they lost it. I'm not entirely sure, but they did lose the land, and now someone else owns the land, and I do believe it's a white person who owns that land, or different white people who own all of the acres that our family lost. My family was actually talking about or proposing the idea that we would like put our funds together, because now there's a lot of us descendants of my great-grandfather and his family, and that if we put our funds together, maybe we could go and purchase that land, right? And maybe redevelop it or start a farm or something like that. So that's actually something that happened to my family very directly. What are some stories that happened to your families about farmland or just land in general that was lost? Because it's not just farmland that's being lost, it's land in general.
By 1910, African Americans owned around 16 million acres of land. much of it acquired through purchases and homesteading. But after years of violence, intimidation, and legal trickery, most of it was taken. Texas A&M law professor Thomas Mitchell has been tracking that loss for 2 decades.
It says discriminatory loan servicing and loan denial by white-controlled, federally funded committees forced black farmers into foreclosure, and their property was purchased by wealthy white landowners, right? That's, again, not surprising, but very unfortunate. Our country is built on people being able to secure loans and lines of credit, right? So that way you can develop your land or purchase products or tractors or fertilizer or whatever the case may be, stock, right? And then the fact that our people were denied that means that economically we were being hampered and jeopardized by, unfortunately, the white majority for our entire time in this country. So when we talk about reparations, it's not just about slavery, which lasted for hundreds of years, in which our ancestors' labor and wealth was stolen, right? Their labor was stolen for generations. Our labor, our ancestors' labor was stolen for generations and generations and generations. That in itself is enough. But also after that, right? Post-emancipation, we were being, our economic development was being hindered, hampered, and we were being terrorized. So when we talk about reparations, it's not just talking about slavery. It's also post-emancipation.
Right now, the country is in the middle of a lot of debates over the racial wealth gap, over the status and economic prosperity or lack thereof of African Americans here, and also about reparations, perhaps. And I wanted to, with this piece, recenter the conversation on one of the places where the deficit has been the most extreme, and that's in farming and in the ownership of land.
There's another article here that says how thousands of black farmers were forced off their land, okay, and it's from The Nation. And this documents the story of Curtis Gentry, who in 1883, just 20 years after emancipation, bought nearly 1,500 acres of land, okay? 1,500 acres of land, that's incredible, in Shiloh County, in a community in Alabama. And by the way, the land in the South is incredibly fertile.
The Mississippi Delta is this area between these rivers in the northwest of Mississippi that has some of the most fertile land in the United States, in the continent, really.
So I had made a previous video talking about black folks potentially relocating to the South. And it happens to be some of the most fertile land in the country, okay? Because someone had mentioned, oh, Anton, it's not a good idea because of climate change. And I'm going to make a subsequent video talking about climate change and the parts of the country which will be impacted the worst, right? So anyways, back on topic. So this Curtis Gentry, he bought about 1,500 acres in Alabama. And what happened was when his descendants eventually inherited the land, they did well. They continued to develop the land and sell produce. But what happened was the family was officially recognized by the USDA to be allowed to sell pigs or to grow and to harvest their pork, their pigs. When the family needed to secure a loan in order to help house and to get feed, house the pigs and to get feed and more equipment for the farm, they were denied their loan by a white man who was a representative of the USDA loans in their community, FSA representative, okay? This man denied them their loans, and he told them straight to their face that they had to wait. They had to wait for all of the white people to receive their loans before the black people could even apply. So before the black folks could even apply for a loan, the white people had to be able to secure all the loan money that they needed, all right? And again, this is not an uncommon practice. So I have another quick story of something that happened that was similar. It wasn't a loan, but it was a line of credit. So during the Great Depression, this was in the Great Depression era, my family went to this local store, and white people were allowed to go and to get food or supplies on credit. Of course, my family went and tried to get food, and they were denied. The white folks who own the shop said, no, you're definitely not getting anything from this store on credit. We don't trust you. In words, you know? And my grandma was a little girl at the time, and she tells me stories of how devastating that was for her, right? Knowing that just because of the color of her skin, that they could have starved. And the reason I share that story is obviously not to feel any sort of anti-white sentiments or anything of the sort. It is just to help us better understand the plight of black folks in this country. And now they're doing the yard, so that's my cue. But wait, there's more. Before you go, as promised, I wanted to show you the silver lining, which is the fact that there are lots of black people in this country doing incredible, amazing, beautiful things for their community and for their families. And it relates to land and farming. So let's go ahead and watch some inspiring video clips.
I decided to go ahead and give you all a tour of my land, of my 87-acre food forest. Over here, I am growing tomatoes, cucumbers, basil, calendula, growing over here. Here we have, inside of here, I have spinach. Is a plum tree. You can't really see any of the plums on it, so I'm gonna go over here. There is another plum tree right over there. This is about to be my snack because I am starving. Got these fresh mark plum tree.
We turned some abandoned land into a homestead and a beautiful glamping community. In this video, we're going to show you exactly how we did it. And it has been passed down from generation to generation. We've owned this land for over 100 years, and it has a special place in my heart. Austin and I have been working tirelessly on this land for 1 year.
It is human right to be able to grow food for yourself. To me, that's what aquaponics represents. This power and ability to feed yourself regardless of what your circumstances are. I like to define it as a multi-species approach to growing food and water. And what you're doing is raising fish and using that fish wastewater as a food source for both microbe and plants. So the three species in an aquaponic system are fish, plants, and microorganisms. It's called an aquaponic cycle. So fish produce waste, that's the ammonia that we were looking at. The microbes break down the fish waste and then produce their own waste as a byproduct, which is nitrate. And then the plants take up the nitrates through their roots. And then in return, the water is clean for the fish. So it's multi-species approach to food production, and it's also this symbiotic, reciprocal relationship.
Welcome back to Life On. I promise you, my name is Gerald. This is my wife, Simone. For those of you that don't know, if you've been here for a while, then you know that we moved out here recently onto this 20-acre property. It's an excellent place to raise a family in. It's also an excellent environment to experience the Creator with friends and family. There's large amounts of fertile land here to grow tons of the highest quality produce possible, not just for our household, but for our extended family and friends, and also for our cold pressed juice business that we use to serve the community.
All of these workers are owners of the business. This business is the West Oakland Farms. My name is Elaine Brown. I'm a former leading member of the Black Panther Party, and I'm the CEO of a nonprofit called Oakland and the World Enterprises. One thing we did right here in West Oakland is we started a program of gardens in the ghetto, believe it or not. And secondly, of course, as everyone knows, we had a lot of food programs because we recognized one of the greatest needs of the poor is food.
You guys, let's go ahead and discuss this respectfully in the comments. I want to know what your opinion is about this topic of land ownership, black land ownership. We know how incredibly important land ownership is in this country for wealth generation, wealth accumulation, wealth transference of wealth to our descendants. Land ownership is incredibly important. So I want to know what you guys think about this topic. Please, let's comment respectfully and let's go ahead and engage. As always, thank you so much for stopping by Anton's class. Until next time, goodbye.